Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining today's JMP Academic live webinar, Cleaning and Preparing Data for Analysis. My name is Ross Matusalam. I'm an academic ambassador with JMP, but I'm just here to MC today. The presenter will be my colleague, Kevin Pochner, who's going to tell us all about the best ways to wrangle data and get it ready for whatever analyses or graphing that we have planned. Before we get going on that topic, I do just have a few things to announce. First, this is the first of our summer academic webinar series. If you're new to the JMP Academic webinars, we hold these every semester, and this summer we're holding a few as well. And they're going to be this summer, starting with this first one, every other Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can see the other topics that we have planned here. So producing publication quality graphics, statistics for comparison research studies, and also a deep dive on some of the more technical aspects around linear regression models. And you can find in-depth descriptions of those webinars and register at jmp.com/academic webinars that you see right there. Now, we provide a lot of different services on this JMP academic team, all geared towards helping academics get the most out of our software. And in those services, we do offer totally free workshops and one-on-one support. And this is generally on analytical techniques, using JMP, maybe even kind of front and back end stuff like we're going to be talking about today, preparing your data, maybe producing reports and things of that nature. So any help that you might need, no matter how big or how small, you can always reach out to academic@jmp.com, and we're happy to help you. And another one of the things that we offer is a suite of free teaching materials. So think things like case studies, sample data sets, quick 2-minute video tutorials for performing specific analyses in JMP. These are materials that are meant to complement your course, maybe lighten your load a little bit if you use JMP in your teaching. So feel free to visit jmp.com/teach to browse our library of teaching resources. Now, before we get going, we welcome questions throughout. We'll make sure to save a couple moments at the end for Kevin to field some questions, but I'm also going to be here as we go along. So if you find your Q&A panel in Zoom, you can see the icon right there with the 2 speech bubbles. Go ahead and open that up. And if you have questions throughout, feel free to type them into the Q&A panel, and I'll, to the best of my ability, answer them as we go along. So then, without further ado, Kevin, I will turn it over to you to tell us about how to clean and prepare data for analysis.
Thank you, Ross. I'm going to share my screen, just confirm that you can see.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Now, I'm actually going to shut off my video just in case there's some internet issues. I've been having some this week, and then if something happens, because I've actually lost power in the house, I might hop over to a personal computer that I have hotspotting through my phone. So I think it's a less than a 5% chance anything's going to happen, but just in case something does, bear with me. But I'm going to stop my video so that doesn't cause any other issues. Okay, so on the screen, this is a list of the topics we're going to cover today, and I'm not going to analyze any of this data. We're going to be bringing data into JMP, we're going to be formatting it, cleaning up, and getting it ready, but I'm not going to take that data and then create graphs or do any other analyses. We just really want to focus on some tools that are used to prepare data. So I'm going to start off with showing some things related to importing data into JMP, because this actually is part of that process. And seeing some of these tools, I meet a lot of JMP users who don't know these tools exist, and this actually can simplify getting data ready. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to import data from a web page. Okay, so just to pick something, I mean, it's small, but this is a wiki web page on internet usage, and you can see there's a bunch of tables and graphs, etc. on this page. What I'm going to do is import that table right there. I know it's a small table, it's just meant to be an illustrative example, but it's not uncommon that big data sets are stored in sort of that HTML format. So all you do is you just grab the link, copy it, and then go into Jump. And under the File menu, we have this option to open a web page. You just put the URL in there. Now I'm going to slide the web page aside for just a moment. And then when you hit OK, what Jump is going to do is identify all these tables that exist on that page. And I guess I'll bring this back. Right, so you can see there's a bunch of tables. Some of the tables are things like this up here, which isn't really data, but nonetheless, it's a table. So sometimes it's identifying a whole bunch of things. But I want to focus on this table here. And that one is titled Broadband Subscription by Region. And it's that one right there. So I'm just going to grab that one table and hit OK. And there it is. Just brought that table right in. Something interesting to note is you see how in this table that this first column has these two levels, fixed or mobile, and as you can see, the fixed would correspond to all of those rows, and then the mobile, all of those rows. So you'll notice what Jump did is it actually went in here and repeated that value fix, and then mobile to correspond to that. So it's smart enough to recognize that. Again, this is a small table. I want to just pick something really easy to see and simple, but you do know when you go to source data, it's not uncommon that data is stored on HTML in that HTML format, and so you can just read that in pretty simple. Now that's not to say that after you read it in, there's some cleaning up, et cetera, that you might have to do, but this one didn't have any of that. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show is opening up data from a PDF. So this is a PDF file. It doesn't really matter what the topic is, but it's just some report put out about internet usage by teens. And if I scroll through here, similar to the web page, you're going to see a lot of graphs. There's going to be all sorts of tables. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read in one of these tables. I'll just pick this one. I'm going to read that table in. So in Jump, I just say File, Open, and back up a little bit. And I just point to that PDF and hit Open. What Jump is going to do is open up this wizard. Now, over on the left is the PDF. It's a little small. Let me see if I can just zoom it a little bit here so it's maybe a little bit easier to see. But same thing, Jump's going through recognizing all these tables. And again, some of them are, you can see right here, text. So it's not data the way we're thinking of data, but they're nonetheless, they're tables in the PDF. So Jump's going through here and trying to recognize all these. And over on the right, it's sort of telling us how many tables it has found and what page number they're on. Now, I only want to bring in one of these tables. So what I'm going to start off telling Jump is to ignore all the tables. Okay, so right now it's not seeing any of the tables. I'm going to pick the tables. And so I want to make this a little bit bigger so you can see this. Okay. So here's this table right here. All I have to do is draw a box around that table. And now Jump has identified the columns and the rows. Okay. Now over on the right is what the table is going to look like when I bring it into Jump. And something you might notice right away is that first row in the table, this row right there. Well, that's actually the titles of those columns. And so right now I haven't told Jump that. And so it's sort of seeing that not as the titles, but just as the first row of data, as you can see over here in row 1, which is not what I want. So all I have to do is there's our little red triangle hotspots that you are familiar with if you're a Jump user. Those are all over Jump. So I can go in here and tell jump that, you know what, one of the rows, the first row is actually the header. Now it could be more than one row. You know, when you're looking at a table, it might organize it where it's 3 rows, you know, make up the title, but in this case, it's just one. So I'm gonna hit 1. And so now you see that jump has recognized that these are now the variable titles, and then the data starts on this line that says watching online videos. Now, if you look over here on the table, there's probably something you notice is, now those are data values I want to bring in, 67%, 52%, 50%, 55%, and so on, right? But, and let me zoom in the table a little bit so you can see it better. And this is not uncommon to have when you're grabbing a table from something. You see how we have those little superscripts A, there's A, B, there's a couple of B's. Well, Jump's bringing that in as within one column, which is, I don't want that. Now, there's 2 ways you can handle this. The first way is I'm going to sort of fix it here at the table level. And then the other way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to bring it into Jump and then fix it there. But I'll show you these 2 methods. So when you're sort of defining what this table is, it's possible that the columns and rows aren't corresponding to what you want. And so you can actually come in here, and I'm going to go in here and say, add a column divider. And so now it's gone through. Now I kind of cut off some of the percentages, but mainly I was trying to cut off the little superscripts. And so now take a look at that column and how I've separated those 2. Now it's also separating the title, and I'd have to fix that. But if I open this here, I now pulled off whatever those additional characters are if I wanted to, if I didn't want to deal with that afterwards. And there still might be some cleaning up, but I just want to point that you can tweak this table a little bit if you want. I'm going to remove that column divider. So sometimes when you see a table, it's not exactly what you want. So you got to kind of go in there and add some rows and column dividers to see it the way you want it. But I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna bring it into Jump, and I'm gonna fix that afterwards. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit OK, and here is my Jump file. Now it's gonna move the PDF away because I don't need to see that anymore. Now these columns, 2019, 2021, and then these other ones here that it just like Jump won't use the same name, so it's just going to add a little suffix at the end if it's going to try to use the same names. So I want to create new columns, new variables that gets rid of those, and I'll just pick one here. Pick this last one here. So I'm going to choose to create a new column, and I will call this, just to give it a name, I'll just call it %. And I'm going to open up Jump's formula editor. And if you haven't worked with the formula editor before, this is how in Jump we do calculations with the variables in the data table. So if you've only used, say, Excel, you're used to, writing in the formula inside of the cell, right? You'd go over here, click on a cell, and then you'd start writing, equals, and then some kind of formula. That's not how we do it in Jump. We open up this formula editor instead. But once you're in the formula editor, it's going to be quite similar to what you're used to, right? So over on the left, we have a lot of built-in functions already there. And the one I'm going to start with is this set of character functions. Right now, Jump sees that as a character variable because it's got those suffixes A and B. And one that would be handy here is, this is kind of a nice function we have. It's called word. So what basically I can ask Jump to do is pull off a word out of a string. And I know you're looking at it and say, well, aren't those numbers? Well, right now it's seeing those as words. So I'm going to put in the variable. Oops, sorry, wrong direction there. I'm going to put in the variable. Now, if I type in, I'm just going to put in 1 just so you can see. And what's nice actually about JMP in our formula editor is you can open up a little preview and you can see what JMP is going to bring in. And so the default is whenever there's a space, that's the delimiter for the next word. So right now, JMP looks at this and sees, oh, 58% is word number 1. Now this one here will say 41% is word number 1. Then there's a space, and then word number 2 is the letter A. And so by just telling it, just grab word number 1, it's going to pull that in. Now the percent symbol doesn't scare JMP. It's going to recognize that. That's just a data format that you can display data. So there's nothing I really have to do there. But let me do something and make it a little trickier. So let's say some of these had, I'll put a little asterisk there. Maybe one of these numbers is referencing a footnote. You're used to seeing it. You're used to seeing stuff like this. I'll just be a little more creative. I'll put a plus. Okay, so you're trying to bring this column in, and then there's all these extra little characters that are coming after the number you want to bring in. And so the way you handle that with this word function is I've just got to tell JMP what all those delimiters are to me, what define a word. So if you look down here at the formula results, okay, so that's what it's going to do right now. If I don't do any more editing to this formula, because it's only using the space. So see, I'm bringing in the plus symbol. I'm bringing in that square bracket 1. I'm bringing in that asterisk, and I don't want any of those. So all I have to do is tell JMP what the delimiters are. And so if I went through here and typed what all the delimiters are, so I could say an asterisk, oops, put that in parentheses. So an asterisk is one of them. The brackets is another one. What else did I have there? Did I have a plus symbol is another one. I can just go in here and say, whenever you see any of those delimiters, treat those as words. Oh, I have to actually put the space in there if I'm doing it this way. And so now if you look down here at the formula results, see how that's bringing that in. Now there's a little NA at the end. I'm going to show you how I'm going to handle that in a second. Now, and maybe even an easier way to do this would have been just to say, well, let me just use the percent symbol as the delimiter, and it's just going to bring in the numbers. And so I hit OK. And here's this new column I created that trimmed off all that stuff that I didn't want. Now I have this NA, which is a missing data value. So I can actually go in here and I can tell JMP that there's missing value codes, and I can go in here and say, okay, NA. Wait, hold on. Oh, I think, do I have to turn that to numeric? I might have to turn that to numeric. Bear with me one second. NA. Oh, sorry. It's attached to a formula. You got to be careful when you create columns attached to a formula. It's similar to when you're in Excel. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to paste it over to a column that isn't attached to a formula. Sorry about that. Okay, so missing value code, and I can say that NA is a missing value, and so JMP is going to treat that. If I went in there, JMP is going to treat that as a missing value, and you see how that just disappeared and the NA is gone. So there could be more than just NA. You could have all sorts of characters that are being used. It might say the word missing. And you can just tell JMP what all the different codes are for missing values, and it will simply take care of that. Okay, I'm going to close this, but I will check in raw. So are there any questions for me, or are you able to handle them as they're coming in?
Oh, we just had one question that's relevant right now, and that is that in the example that you were working on, what would happen if you simply changed the column from character to numeric? Would that automatically eliminate the unwanted text?
It would not. It would still see it wouldn't let you do that. Hence why I had to trim that off.
Okay, that's it for now. Thanks.
All right, perfect. Okay, the next one I'm going to show is I'm going to open up a text file. Well, not only is it a text file, but the data inside the text file is text. And not that it's important what this is, but this is just, sorry, I know this is tiny. Can I make this any bigger? I don't know if I can make the text file any bigger. Possibly not. Oh, zoom in. All right, I zoom way in. Okay. So just wanting to point out that the first row of this text file is just some information that I don't want to read in. The second row is blank. And the third row, those are my titles. And also, if I scroll down the bottom, somebody wrote some information there, which I don't want to read that in. Okay, but there are 12,675 rows of data that I want to read in. Okay, so inside of JMP, I'm just going to go File, Open. Click on that text file, and I'm going to have sometimes this isn't selected by default. I have it, so it's going to show me this preview. So when I hit Open, this little view is going to pop up where I can see what JMP's doing. And right off the bat, since I haven't told it anything, the default says, okay, there are column names on row number 1, and then the data starts on row number 2. That's not true. That's not what happens. It's row number 3 where the variable titles are, and row number 4 is where the data starts. So all I have to do is tell JMP that. So as soon as I did that, you see now how it has survey ID and Q1 answer. Those are in bold, so that's telling me those are going to be the titles which I want. Now, if I scroll all the way down, see it's trying to bring in that piece of information. There was some extra notes down at the bottom. So I can actually tell JMP that I want to subset a certain number. And maybe I don't want to read all these in. In fact, I'll just to show you that you can do this. Let's say I only want to read in the first 1,000. So I can tell JMP subset this data and only read in the first 1,000. I'll hit next. I'll hit import, and it's out of there. And so now I have a JMP file. I only brought in the first 1,000 of those surveys, and I got the titles where I want. Now, the reason why I brought this in is what I wanted to show is, imagine if what you want to do is you want to comb through all this data and find certain words, and from that create variables just describing the frequency of those words used. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch JMP's Text Explorer platform. Now, I'm not going to use this to analyze the text. I just want to show this one quick little thing you can do, which I find really neat. So I'm going to bring in, oh, actually, you know what? While I'm here, let me do this. Let me do this one. I'll do one extra little treat. So the way this survey is set up is the responders were asked if they strongly in favor or somewhat in favor, strongly opposed, somewhat opposed, or neutral on, on how they felt about if a casino would be built in the city. So they had to give 3 reasons. So if I wanted to analyze all this text data together, I'd want to create a new variable. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to create a new column. And I'm going to call it, and I'll just give it reasons. And I am going to open up the formula, and I'm just going to choose to concatenate. Okay, so this would be, it's kind of similar how you would be doing this in Excel. So I'm going to put that first variable, reason number 1. I'm going to hit concatenate. And I'll just put a space. I could put a, oh, you know what, maybe I'll put a little semicolon there, concatenate, reason 2, concatenate, put another little semicolon there, concatenate, reason 3, and hit OK. And so now I have this column, which you see is just concatenating those 3 columns together. Okay, I just wanted to do this because now I have all of the reasons in one variable, not spread across. So now if I launch JMP's Text Explorer, I'm going to put in that variable reasons, hit OK. And the first thing JMP does is it's going to just count up the words and phrases that are used. Now there's a whole set of techniques and approaches of how you analyze text data, but that's not what I'm doing here. What I just want to show you is, let's say I wanted to go through, and I'm just going to pick a few words here. Let's say I'll pick revenue. That's probably a positive word. Money, it's probably positive. I'll pick some negative ones: crime, addiction, jobs, tourism, traffic. I'm just picking some just set of words. Well, what I can ask JMP to do is to create some indicator variables. And now if I go to the data table, what JMP has done is it's just gone through here, and in fact, I can highlight these pretty easy if I just pick it. So it's a binary indicator variable, giving me 1 if that word has been used, or 0 if it's not. So every responder that you see highlighted has used the word money somewhere in those 3 different reasons, and across all these other variables. So what's nice is I have now created a data set, a numeric data set that I can use to do some kind of analyses. And maybe I want to see the frequency or use of these words relative to like different age groups. We have different gender or postal codes where people live. So you can use JMP to sort of sift through all that text and create these indicator variables. And I could have also done it where I set it up so it was the frequency of words. So it wasn't just a binary 0, 1, but it was actually counting up because maybe the person said the word more than once. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that because that's something you can do to create a data set from text data. And close all that. Okay. The next thing we'll do is I'm going to import multiple files, and then from there we're going to do some manipulation. Okay, so the files I'm going to open, and I'll just open up one of them so you can see here. Make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so this happens to be yearly reports on the blood alcohol content of drivers that are involved in fatal crashes. And as you can see, I have a set of data for each state. And then the variables are what that blood alcohol content of the driver was. So that first one is there's no blood alcohol content. This one was between 0.01, 0.07, and this one was 0.08 plus. So I'm going to bring this in. And something to note is the variable names or column names are going to be on row 3, and the data starts on row 5. And then there's going to be another thing, but I'm going to fix this once I bring the data into JMP. At the very, very bottom, and this is pretty common, at the bottom of the table is some kind of summary statistic, right? This is just a sum, but it could be the mean or the standard deviation. So right there, we've got the sum of all the states, so it's titled USA. Okay, so now I have 4 of these files: 2010, 11, 12, and 13. Right. So I'm going to go into JMP. Now, actually, before I do this, I'm going to talk about this log file in a moment. But I'm just going to clear it so I have it set up. Okay. So under the Windows menu, JMP has basically it's keeping track of any time you do any sort of analysis, right? It's called this log file. I just cleared it so there's nothing here. But we're going to start doing some work, and as we do work, this is going to start saving scripts. And the reason why I want to draw your attention to this is it's not uncommon that you do the same kind of set of steps, but now with a new data set or new collection of files. And instead of having to go through all the manual steps again, I can just save all those scripts and then just execute the script, and it will duplicate all those manual steps. So I'm going to go through a bunch of manual steps. I'm going to show you what's in the log file, and then we're just going to run those scripts. I'm just going to slide it aside for now. Okay, so I'm going to go open multiple because I'm going to try to bring in 4 files. Okay. Now, in this folder that I'm pointing to, you see there's a bunch of files beyond just the 4 that I want to bring in. So I'm going to tell JMP the files I want to bring in are all the CSV files. So I can just say, okay, just take a look at the CSV files. There's 4 of them. That's what I want to see. And you could also do things where you can select the files by a certain size or by a certain date range. But in this case, this is simple. It's the only 4 CSV files. So I'm just going to tell it, yeah, look for those CSV files. That's what I want to bring in. Okay. Now, what do I want to do? Well, I could bring in an individual JMP table for each of those files. That's not what I want to do. I want to stack them. And this is going to work because they all have the same variable names. I have to tell JMP that, so I'm going to go to the settings, and I'm going to say the variable name is on row 3, and there's only one row that describes the variable name, but it could be on more than one. That's not uncommon. And the data starts on row 5. Okay, so it's going to skip row 1 and 2 and skip row 4 and see it the way I want it to be in 5. I'm going to go back to OK. Now, something that's handy to do is I want to add the file name as a column. So when it stacks all this up, it's going to take the name of those files, and I'm going to have a variable indicating those 4 different files. And first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to say save script to script window. And so this is I don't know if any of you have worked with scripts in JMP, but when you want to run scripts, here's file, new script, and then you'll get a script window, and this is where you can paste in different scripts. So that's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to move this aside, but what's going to happen is we're going to do a bunch of steps. They'll all get added into this log file. I'm going to grab them. I'm just going to copy them over, and then I'm going to paste them into this script window, and then we'll just duplicate the analysis we do. But I'm going to move it aside for now. So we're just looking at this multiple import window. Okay, is there anything else I want to do? No, but you see there's a whole bunch of options. And I'm going to hit import. And it's brought all that in. Let me just make the columns a little wider there. All right. And so a couple things we have to do here. One is remember how I've got a row, which is the total in the entire country, but I don't want to bring that in, right? Because JMP thinks that's a data value when it's really a statistic of the data table. And that occurs 4 different times because we have the 4 different units. Well, it's very easy. It's very easy to find those. One of the simplest ways to do it is you just click on one of them. Okay, so I just have one of them selected. And then under the rows menu, I just say row select matching cells. And now, you can see down here, right there, it's telling me I've got 4 rows selected. So if I scroll through here, I would see the 4 rows that are selected are the rows that have USA in the state variable. And so then all I have to do is just say delete rows, and then those are gone. So that's kind of a easy way to do that. Another thing I might want to do is, and the reason why I brought in the file name is I really want to know what year each of these rows correspond to, right? So this first set's going to be 2010, and then I'm going to 2011. So I just want to yank off that year, those 4 values in that string. There's a couple ways to do it. I'll pick my way. So what I'm going to do is I'll call it year. And I'm going to bring up the formula. Okay. And again, we have all sorts of functions, built-in functions over here. So far, I've only been in this character one, but you can see, I'm just going to open some of these up, right? So you can just kind of see we've got conditional arguments, right? You can write if-then statements, nested if-then. I can grab data from probability distributions, generate random data. Here's statistical functions, like if I want to calculate means and sums and create new columns based upon that. But I'm going to be in the character again. Now, if you float your cursor over any of these functions, a little tip pops up on to try to describe what that is, right? So it's kind of giving you a little description of how you specify that formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this right function, and I'll hold my cursor there so the tooltip pops up. And so basically, I'm going to define a string and then say I want to read in a certain number of characters in that string starting from the right. So this is where I put the variable, and it's called file name. Now, if I look at this, now I'm going to open up this preview so we can watch what happens. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I type in 8 here, now look over here at the formula result. So it's going to pull off those 8 characters from the right, which contains the year, which is what I want, but it also contains .csv, right? Those are the first four characters coming from the right. Well, that's easy because now I can actually sort of do the opposite. So right in front of this formula, I'm going to do the left function. So I'm going to be basically pulling 4 characters from the left from me originally pulling 8 characters from the right. And so if you look here, whoops, I keep on doing that. And so now that's reading in the year just the way I want. Right, so I'm going to hit OK. And now it's created this year column. Now I'm just going to slide over the log file just for a moment. So see, we remember this was blank a moment ago. Now we've done some things. And so here, for example, was when we cleared the rows. I select matching cells, I deleted rows. Here's the script for that, creating that new column year. So as we do things, this just starts getting added up with scripts. And it's the same true if we were doing data analysis, like if I was making a graph or I made a scatter plot or whatever, that the scripts for each of those graphs or analyses would be added to this log file. So I'm going to slide that to get it out of the way. Now, the thing is with this is, yeah, it's counting up the number of sort of these fatal crashes. Well, obviously, a state that has a lot of people in it, like a state like California, well, that number is going to be very large, because obviously that state's large, and Florida, I think Texas is going to be a large state too, right? So those numbers are going to be high because of that. So it might be a better way to treat this data is if I can do it in some per capita basis. And I'm going to do that because I have another jump file right here that has each state and the number of licensed drivers in that state. And so what I want to do is I want to bring these values into here. Now I know you might be like, oh, just copy paste. I mean, this one's so simple that I could sort of just do a copy paste, just paste it 4 times. But I want to show a tool where we join data tables, because it may be in most cases it's probably a lot more complicated than that. You want to bring it in. Okay, so under our tables menu, and I'm going to show some of these functions here, but we're going to start off with join, but you can see that, I can stack data, I can transpose it, I can subset it, I can split it. There's a query builder, which is basically like you're doing SQL queries, hitting up against the database. So I'm going to choose join. And this little window pops up. And so right now, all I have selected is that, that file, which is the one that has all the years. And I want to bring in this other file because I want it to join. I want to bring in these licensed drivers numbers and get it into this file, or at least I could create a third data table, which is what I'm going to do. So I just have to tell JMP what I want to join, what I want to match up. And so I'm going to match state. So we see state in the licensed driver column, grab that licensed driver number and add it and match it up to the state that's in the data where I have all the years and all the counts. I can give the table a name. Let me try to be consistent with what I've been naming things here, especially if I got a script. So policy. And I'll say it's with giving it a name there. Now I can tell JMP, well, when you do this joining and putting this into a third JMP file, that what columns do I want to bring in? Now, obviously, it's going to sort of bring in what's matching, and then I have to say, well, what do I want to do? So what variables do I want to make sure I include? And so I'm going to choose this here. This is select columns to join table. Now, if I only need one state, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in, I don't need to bring in the file name license. So I don't need to duplicate state because it's going to bring in state. And I hit select. So these are the ones I was going to save. Hit OK. And then now I have this, I'm going to move these ones aside. Just so now I've created this third data table that has the counts for each of those blood alcohol content levels. It has year, which is what I want, and it has a number of licensed drivers. So what I now can do is create a whole set of variables that are going to be these counts per the number of licensed drivers. And so just like we've been doing, that's done via a formula. So new columns, I'm going to call it, I'll just do one of them, I won't do all three. So BAC equals 0 per say 100,000 drivers. I'm going to go to the formula and I'm going to do the count of that variable, divide by number of licensed drivers times 100,000. I can open up the preview if I want to see what it's going to be before I hit OK. Hit OK. Something I always find people put way too many numbers after the decimal point when it's really not that necessary. So I tend to like to keep it small. I'll just round it off to one place after the decimal. Hit OK, and so now I have, and I can do the same thing for the other two columns, but I'm not going to. Okay, so all of that stuff we've been doing. I'm just going to close some files I got on another screen. Okay, so all that stuff we were doing has been saved here in all these scripts. Okay, so I'm just kind of scrolling through so you can see all the steps we've done. Well, I can copy those scripts and add it to my script, that script window that I started where I brought in the multiple files. Right. Close this. I'm working with multiple screens here. Okay, so this first part of the script is bringing in those 4 CSV files, and like opening tables, that licensed drivers by state. And then you can see here's the joining table. So I created the new column of year. Then here's the new column of the counts per 100,000 drivers. So all that is there. And so if I just hit run script, bing, 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 there it is. And I just duplicated that file, right, where I've got that new variable. I grabbed a script I already had saved just in case something happened. So that's why, this script didn't delete this. And it didn't round that off, but basically I did the same exact thing. Now, when you work with that, keep in mind that, there may be some differences with this new operation, right? So you might be, sorry, back to this one. The variable names might be different, or the titles of the files, or the location. So when you're doing this, it's not as if you don't have to sometimes go in here and start doing some editing to the scripts. That's common that you have to do this. But I picked an example where I didn't have to make any of those changes. I literally just duplicated the same four files. So I don't know if any of you have sort of examined the log file, but and it does it for as long as I have jump open. So if you were sitting there, I've got jump open for a day, and I've gone through all these different analyses. That log file has got everything. It's not just attached to this one data table. It's going to be attached to the whole session of having jump running. Okay, I'm going to close before I go to the next set of tools. Ross, we'll check in.
Yeah, we have one question that came in. I was in the process of typing out a response. We might as well handle it live. And that's asking, what about stacking several pairs of columns? For example, you have A right and A left, and then B right and B left, and so forth. These are all separate columns. I was going to mention briefly multiple series stack. I don't know if you want to show people where to find that.
That is, I love when people ask that. I can't tell, does that mean we're doing a good job? We're teasing it right up to that point. That is literally the next example I'm about to do.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I'm going to bring in another version of that same data. Okay, and so in this version, we have the number of rows are the number of states plus Washington, D.C. I've got the licensed drivers. But now the way it's set up is these 3 variables are dealing with those 3 blood alcohol content categories, but just for the 2010 numbers. And then these ones are the 2011 numbers, 2012, and 2013. Now, that's not the best way to have data in JMP. We typically want to have the data we're going to graph or plot or run an analysis on. We want to have that typically as a variable. And then you can have other variables as indicator variables to indicate something like, in this case, what is the blood alcohol content and what is the year. So I'm going to go into showing some stacking approaches. So we click on stack. I'm going to do this a couple different ways. Okay, so if I just bring in all of these variables, I'm going to say stack columns. I'm just going to make this bigger so you can see the whole list. And I'm going to give it a name for the data, which is going to be the counts, and the labels. I'm going to call it EAC in year, because what it's going to do is it's going to bring in those titles, which has both the blood alcohol content and the year. So I can state it as such. I can give the output table a name. I won't do it. I'll just call it untitled, some number. And then I hit OK. And so now what JMP has done is it's taken all of those counts, and this is the best way to have the data, right? It's Y, the variable I'm going to do any kind of analysis on. And so all of that is in one column. So it's 612 rows. And it's repeating, right? Because I've got, for example, here's Alabama, and I'm going to scroll this column over so you can see, like, well, I've got these three categories of blood alcohol content for 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013. So this is really the best format to have data, is have it all as one variable. I know if you work with Excel a lot, you used to kind of maybe working with table views, but it's really not the way statistical software likes to work. It really wants that to be like an outcome variable, and then these could be explanatory variables or factors where I might be doing some comparisons. Now, this isn't really set up exactly the way I want, because I want the blood alcohol content and the year. I really want those as two new variables. And I can do that, and let's see if we can figure that out. We'll start with the easy one, year. So we know we've done this one before. We basically just want to pull off from the right the 4 characters in that string, hit OK, and so now I have the year column. Now, pulling off the blood alcohol content, let's see how we would do that one. New column, I'll call it BAC, and we're going to pull up the formula again, and I'm going to use this word function. Okay, I'm going to open up the preview because we'll kind of tweak things as we go here. So let me move this up so we have to like eye the actual values. Okay, so the column is this BAC in year. Okay. Now, what would I do here? Okay, so well, I'm going to put some numbers in there so you can see what happens. So if I put a 1, well, it's going to bring in everything up to the first space, right? Well, that's not what I want. If I put a 2, well, now it's going to bring the equal sign. And if I put in a 3, now it's going to bring in that. See, this is a nice way to do this, because the categories aren't using the same number of characters, right? For 0, it's just the one character 0, but for this other one, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's made up of 7 characters, and this for the 0.08 plus, that's 1, 2, 3. That's made up of 4 characters. So this word function is really neat. Now, I don't have to specify any delimiters because the space handles it, but if I wanted to, or if I needed to, you might have to tell it different characters as a way to define the words, and I hit OK. And now I have these 2 variables, the 3 BAC levels and the 4 years, and it's those that I'm going to use when I do any kind of analysis or make any kind of graphs, if I want to take those counts and show those different categories. Now, if you go to erase a column that was used to create those new variables, I'm going to do that because I might not need this anymore. So I'm going to say delete column. JMP's going to warn you and say, oh, well, there's a formula that's attached to those columns. And so that's fine. I can just tell JMP to just remove the formula. I still have those columns I used that I created, but there's no formula attached to these anymore. Okay, so that's one way to stack the data. And that's going to be your safest way to stack the data when I go forward and start doing analyses. Like if you were doing a regression, so kind of linear model, well, it wants one Y, one outcome variable count, and then I can use these as my X's. But I'm just going to show you some other ways that you might choose to stack the data. I'm going to go back here and stack. And I think this is going to lead into the question that that was asked there. Okay. Now, I can stack, and I'm going to right here where my cursor is, multiple series stack. And so if I look at this, I can see, okay, I've got 2010, 11, 12, 13. So if I type in a 4 there, And I also have to click on this because you'll see it's going to connect that first column. What JMP is going to do is it's going, well, you'll see what it's going to do. And same thing, I can decide like which columns I'm going to keep. I can select them. I'll just choose keep always for everything in there. We can delete later if we want to. I hit OK. And so now what it's done, scroll this over here. And so now what it's done is it said, okay, I'm going to stack for each year. I'm going to have two variables. So this is for 2010. So you can see 2010 at the end of the string here. And within each of those, I've got the three levels. So here's Alabama with the three categories of BAC. Here's Alaska, the three categories of BAC, Arizona, Arkansas, and so on. But these two columns are all the data for 2010. Then the next pair, that's the same thing, but now for 2011. And then the next pair is 2012. And then the next pair is 2013. So there may be times when this is just a better way to have the data. It's usually not. It's usually better to have it all stacked the first way I showed you, but I can stack it this way. I'm going to close that. Now, what's nice with this stacking is it's keeping track of how I'm putting the variables over here. So I'm going to put it in another way. I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab all the BAC 0 categories first across the 4 years. It's that. Then I'm going to grab that next category, which is 0.01 to 0.07 for the 4 years, stack. And then I'm going to grab the last category, which is 0.08 plus for the 4 years, stack. Okay, so this concept of this multi-series stack is based upon this order I put it in here. So I'm going to do multi-series stack. Now I'm going to say there's 3 series. Again, I got to click on this so it matches up that first column. So now watch what happens. Hit OK. Scroll this over. And so now what I have, bigger so you can see them all. And so now the way I have this, and the default just uses the word label in data, but really I would have typed numbers in there. Oh, I'm sorry, I would have typed names in there, but just for the preservation of time, I just left it as the default. I can go in there and easily change it, that's no problem. So you see now what it's doing is it's pairing off the BAC level. So this pair is for a BAC of 0, this pair is for BAC of 0.01 to 0.07, and this pair is for 0.08 plus, and then the rows are corresponding to the years, right? So there's the 4 years for Alabama, here's the 4 years for Alaska, Arizona, and so on. Okay, now all those things we were doing, all those steps we're doing, they got added all to our log file. So if I wanted to grab any of these, I can do that. I can run or I can just run one of them if I want, right? So I can just go in here and run the script, have something selected and run the script. So all of this is getting saved. What's also nice about this is, you do all sorts of work analyzing data. It can be nice to save this file too, right? So that if you want to recall specific things you've done, you can do that. So that's not uncommon. A lot of users who like working with scripts will save this log file as well as their JMP file that with the data table and all their analyses they do.